Hello viewers and Monster Hunter fans, this is Wolf here with another figure unboxing and review, and today we're going to be taking a look at the S.H.MonsterArts Nargacuga figure. Now, this is the first Monster Hunter figure within the S.H.MonsterArts line, so I'm pretty excited to jump into this because Nargacuga is one of my favorite monsters design-wise in the series, and honestly, S.H.MonsterArts, this version of it, is looking very promising. So let's take a look at the box here. So as we can see here, we have Nargacuga in its very popular pose here, looking very good. We also have this golden sticker here, which I believe this is supposed to indicate that this version also comes with a miniature hunter wielding a great sword here. So the front of the box is looking pretty cool. If we take a look to the sides, of course we have this kind of purplish color here, Nargacuga on the side. And then right on the back, honestly, I honestly really like this box just because of this design that they have here. They have the claw marks going down on this side, and then if you look really closely, you can actually see Nargacuga just right in there. So I think this box is actually really cool just because of that feature. But on the back here, we of course have the model here with a nice little backdrop, of course showing some of the extra stuff. There's like a little piece of wood there that you can prop it up on, and just kind of showing the model in some extra detail there. So overall, it's a pretty aesthetic looking box. Even to the top, you can see like the wings are kind of bleeding up to this top portion, and then we have Nargacuga with like the eye mist and stuff in the background. A pretty nice looking box and everything. I'm honestly probably gonna hold on to this. But anyways, let's jump on to the actual model. So let's just unbox this real quick. And that should be everything there. Alright, so let me get it out of this packaging here. Alright, so this is everything that comes with this. You can see that we have Nargacuga right here, and he's a pretty sizable model. I'll run a comparison with this model with some of the Capcom figure builder models later on, but here is that piece of wood right here. Again, another sizable piece here. You can see the flat section underneath. Right here, we have the miniature hunter. It's just all red here, wielding a great sword. And then a couple of extra pieces of Nargacuga's tail. You can see that the tail, you can swap these parts out for the more spiky version of the tail. And like, honestly, whoa, these spikes are actually really sharp. You can actually I can actually feel this kind of sticking to my skin, which is kind of interesting. It has a really nice texture to it, so that's actually pretty cool. And here is a swappable headpiece for Nargacuga. Of course, at the very bottom down here, right down here, we have some extra parts here that we can use to kind of, I guess you can suspend Nargacuga up in the air for some additional action poses. So I guess let's take a deep look at Nargacuga and its articulation. Alright, so just quickly taking a look at the model, the colors, and the detail here. I'm really liking how this Nargacuga is designed. It's looking pretty beautiful. From the dark, very dark blues going down the body, I'm trying to represent that almost stealthy look with the fur. It's very, very dark blues going all the way down. The top is very nice looking, and then when we look at the wings here, the little membrane, you can see how the blue transitions out into this almost kind of reddish pink color at the ends of the membrane there. And then, of course, onto the head. Of course, we can see these red lines going all the way down to, I guess you could say, the ears, right down here. Of course, you can see the yellow portion of the eye in there as well. I also like the coloration of the beak here, kind of standing out from the rest, because this has more of like a silverish, very shiny look to the beak, which is kind of cool. You can see it's very detailed as well. You can kind of see, I think that's supposed to be like a nostril or something on that side, that little indented section there. So it's very detailed. If we take a look to the mouth, we can actually open this up. The mouth is also very nicely detailed as well. If the camera focuses on the inside, you can actually see that when you look at the roof of the mouth, there's a lot of dark spots up in there. You can also see like the little ribbed sections at the top of the mouth looking very good as well. There's a lot of detail in there, as well as like highlighting the teeth at the bottom and the tongue. There's a lot of detail going on with the inside of the mouth of this figure, which is actually pretty cool. And when we take a look at the wings here and the feet, you can see that we have a shiny kind of visual here on the feet here. It almost has a little bit of like a glittery type of look to it, especially if we look to the wings here, these little bladed wings. There's a little bit of a glittery effect here, looking onto here, as well as this very nice silverish color. So you can kind of see it has a nice transition from this kind of dark brown going all the way out to the end of the wing, which then kind of transitions into a nice silver out here. It's very shiny and very glittery, especially when we take a look to the underside of the model here. You can see that the coloration is very different down here, and you have a lot more detail of the underside of Nargacuga. You can kind of see the muscle structure down here, which is actually kind of interesting. You can see this different coloration where it kind of goes into almost like a beige color just underneath the legs and onto the midsection of the body, even underneath the neck right down here and going all the way down to the tail. So some really interesting coloration here. I really like what they've done with the colors on this Nargacuga model. So now I just want to highlight some articulation. So I guess we'll start from the head first. So like we saw earlier, you can open up the mouth, and the mouth seems to open up about that far. So you've got some nice movement there, some nice mouth movement. So now for the head, you have a bit of rotational movement as well here. The head, you can almost rotate the head completely around if you wanted to. Kind of looks a little silly, but you do have a lot of movement with the head there. And then there's a lot of segmented areas going down the body, which allows for a wide degree or a big degree of movement here. So you can actually see that when you turn the head to the side, all of these segmented parts kind of work in combination to achieve some nice levels of articulation. You can actually see right here from the top view the angle that the head is able to turn in with that as well. So you can definitely move that out pretty far. This part of the neck moves quite a bit, and on top of that, when you rotate it, you can see that it rotates about that far. I don't think you can really get it out much more than that. But yeah, you have a lot of movement with the head, as well as a bit of up and down movement up like that. You can see it looks up about that high, and then going down, you can kind of look down about that far. You might be able to get it a little bit more, but yeah, that's about the movement that you're going to get from up and down on the head and the neck area of this model. So taking a look at the front legs, so with the paws, you have a tiny bit of movement here, just a tiny bit of up and down, not a whole lot there, but you also have this movement here. You can also see that when you take a look at the wings, the bladed wing portion, these can actually rotate quite a bit. You can actually move these around pretty freely. So you have a lot of movement on these wings here, just like that. And then on the arms, you can see that right up here, there's a bit of movement there. So you can rotate these arms in and out just a little bit, like that. And then, of course, from this angle, from this portion here, you can rotate the arm all the way completely around, just like that. So you have a lot of movement there. And then for some in and out, you can see right here, you have some pretty wide in and out movement. You can see that you can stretch it out about that far on the model, and then if you're going to put it in, you can put the arm in pretty far, just about underneath the head there. So you have a lot of movement. You can actually get it a little bit further in as well too. So you have a lot of movement with this, from the rotational section here, the in and out movement of here, and then of course the bladed wing portion here. And then there's another part with the wings as well, where we have a wing on the undersection here that you can actually slide this out. So just like that, you have that extended, that extra bladed wing just underneath to really show off the wings here very nicely, completely extended. So kind of cool how we have like a little hidden wing down there, which is pretty interesting. So now looking to the midsection of the body, you can see that I think for the most part, this top section with this part here kind of stays relatively connected. There's a very little movement you can get between those two pieces from side to side, but this is kind of where the most movement you'll get from it is. So you can see that right here, we can turn it about that far to the side and then up like that. So you have a bit of movement there. Of course, there's more rotational movement on this as well, as you can see from that joint. So you got quite a bit of movement there as well. So taking a look at the rear legs, you can see that on the paw here, much like the front paws, these have a tiny bit of movement up and down here, much like the fronts. So there's not a whole lot you're going to get out of that. But if you take a look at the knee joint, I guess you could say right up here, you have quite a bit of movement here. You can see you can move these back pretty far. You can kind of coil it back like that, and then going out forward, you can actually get a pretty nice forward angle like that. There's also a little bit of side-to-side movement like that, as you can see, and then onto this top portion of the leg here, you can also move this as well. You get a little bit of rotational movement with that part of the leg here. So you can see you can kind of rotate it in and out. You can see that right there. You got like a drastic out angle there, and then rotating it inward, you can do something like this, which looks very silly, but you have a lot of movement with this leg here, as well as moving it forward like that, and in and out. So there's a lot of movement you can get with that as well. So now looking onto the tail, you can see that the tail, we have a very long tail here, like that, very beautiful looking. And then of course the tail has a lot of segmented portions here, which are all going to work in combination with each other to achieve some really nice articulation. You can see that we also have like a little hidden section of the tail right in here, which is going to move in as we move the tail around. So just for some upward movement, you can see that the tail, each segment kind of bends up, and you can get some really nice articulation just with this. We get a very drastic angle with the tail. If you look at it from the front, it's kind of like Nargacuga's rearing up to kind of shoot those little spikes out of its tail, which is actually pretty cool. So you have a lot of movement here, and then of course turning it from side to side, you can see that we get some nice movement just like that if we take a look from the top. So you get a lot of movement here, and you can of course move this down as well. You can move this down quite a bit. You can see this portion of the tail has a lot of movement here. You can see that there's a lot of movement with this portion of the tail as well. So the tail is definitely the most posable part on this model, that's for sure, which is a good thing, because you're going to want to, like, tail is definitely one of Nargacuga's defining features here. So having all that movement is definitely very welcomed. So that's pretty much for the most part going to cover articulation. There are some more subtle spots when it comes to like the midsection of the body, but yeah, this is honestly a very posable model. There's a lot of stuff you can achieve with this, so I'm actually pretty happy with the level of articulation that we have with this. Alright, so here I'm just going to highlight some of the removable parts, the customizable features of this. So we're going to take a look at the tail right here. So of course we have this spiked out tail here. So you can of course swap the regular tail out. So all these sections can kind of pop out. So you want to remove this tail section as well as this. So they come out pretty easily. You can see that they all sit on a ball on the end of it there. So you just attach this part in, and it attaches in pretty easily. So it is pretty nice that a lot of these rotational, or a lot of these swappable parts, they remove easily and kind of attach in easily, which is pretty cool. You can see that with this tail, there's a little bit of movement apart from this spiked section right here. You can see a picture, a little bit of an idea of what I'm talking about right here with that movement, which is pretty interesting. And yeah, it's a very nice looking display, especially when you have Nargacuga's tail all the way up like that. You have the spikes ready to go, ready to shoot out some spikes. So that's actually really cool looking right there. And then, of course, we have these two additional wings here. So the purpose of these is that if you're going to fully extend these bladed wings here, of course, there's going to be a bit of a weird gap in between the wings here. So these wings are made to fill in that gap. You can actually see that right in here. It's a little bit dark, but there is a mounting section right there, which this nub right here is supposed to sit in that. And once you mount that in, it sits in a little tightly, but you just gotta wiggle this in a little bit. And once you can get it in, once you can get it in, this is essentially supposed to fill in that gap with the wing there. So it is nice that they did come with parts like these for the movement that you have with the model here. So here I'm just doing a little bit of a size comparison between the S.H.MonsterArts Nargacuga and the Capcom Figure Builder's creator model, Tigrex. So you can see that both of these models are relatively the same in terms of scale. The size is relatively the same, and I even have them in a similar pose, even with their tails up. You can see that Nargacuga's tail reaches up pretty much around the same height as Tigrex's. It's actually a little bit taller as well. But you can see that both of these models are relatively the same in terms of scale, which is really nice. So you can see that, you can definitely get a picture that the S.H.MonsterArts Nargacuga is definitely going to be a fairly sizable model. It's going to compare up to a lot of the larger models that from the Monster Hunter series, which is really nice. And on top of that, having that extra level of posability on them is definitely very welcome. So I really like the scale of this. Very cool that, you know, you can kind of compare these and have these sit alongside the Capcom Figure Builder models for sure. Alright, so here I just wanted to quickly highlight the stand portion of this figure. So you can see that we have this little wood piece here that I showed off earlier. So this part kind of sits into it. So if I just remove it real quick, you can see that with the wood here, we actually have two mounts, one here and then one over here, which you can just slide these in. Of course, it goes in pretty easily without much of a struggle. So with this fully extended, you can see that you get some pretty nice length here with the stand arm here. Of course, you have quite a bit of movement. That part can bend down like that, and then you have this part, which is supposed to be used to support Nargacuga, so you can get some nice poses with this elevated height here. And of course, these claw arms open up and tighten, depending on where you want to put this on Nargacuga's body, which is kind of interesting. And of course, you have some rotational movement on that, as well as some forward and back movement like that. So pretty interesting stand, and the thing that I like about it is how it attaches into this wood piece. So with that comparison that I made earlier with the Nargacuga and the Capcom Figure Builder line, a lot of those models seem to have like kind of like scenery or almost like some type of like base that they're standing on. So you kind of have that effect here with this little wooden piece and the stand here. So I think that actually, I think that works together really nicely with the Capcom Figure Builder models as well too. So that's honestly, I think that's honestly a really nice feature with this whole setup here. So that pretty much covers everything in regards to this Nargacuga figure. Now if I were to go into my final thoughts, I'm honestly very impressed with this figure, not only for Nargacuga being one of my favorite monsters in the series, but also for the level of visual quality and articulation presented with this model. On top of that, I also love the fact that I can put this figure right next to any of my creators models, Capcom Figure Builder monsters, and it just not look out of place. Like, I can literally put this right next to my Tigrex, my Velkhana, or my Nergigante, whatever, and it'll look like it belongs with those models just from the scale that's presented here and the visual quality. It just matches up with those very nicely, so I think that's a very cool aspect with this figure as well. But when we're talking about articulation, I think that the level of articulation here that's presented is just very impressive. From the various segments going down the body, from the head all the way down to the legs and all the way up to the tail, there's just such a high level of movement and posability that you can get with Nargacuga here, even from the fact that you can just really represent some of the trademark poses that you usually see Nargacuga in artwork and stuff like that. I think that that's very cool. There's a lot of posability that's presented here and a lot of things that you can do with this Nargacuga. On top of that too, I love the coloration, the colors that offset a lot of the blues, even just talking about the blues. Like, I love the dark blues that we have going all the way down the body, even the texture that we have here to kind of represent the fur. You can definitely see the rough sections of Nargacuga's fur here, giving it that very stealthy look, which I really like. And on top of that too, like the offsetting colors, like the reds on the ends of the membrane of the wing, and then the reds on the side of the face, I think is really good. Even on the the inside of the mouth, which is probably something you wouldn't notice all that much, but the inside of the mouth is just very heavily detailed as well, from the various different color pigments on the inside and on the roof of the mouth, and the little ribbed sections on the roof of the mouth as well too. I think that that stuff is just very cool for something you probably won't notice all that much. On top of that too, I also love the coloration on the wings as well. For like the large wings, I love how there's that transition from like the brown sections of the paws going all the way up into a very shiny silver, and that kind of glittery effect that we have on the wings to really show off that very shiny portion of the wing there, the bladed portions of the wings. I think that that's honestly very well done. Even looking onto the underside of Nargacuga, where we have those different colors, like the beigey undersections kind of offsetting the top portion of the body, even underneath the paws, I think that that's honestly very, very good. I think that the coloration very accurately represents Nargacuga from the games in figure form here, so I think that that's honestly very impressive. The other thing that I like a lot as well too is the level of customization that we have here, because we have a lot of stuff from the various tail pieces that we can attach on, of course like the relaxed tail, and of course the spiked up tail that I have currently in, as well as these additional wing pieces for you to make the wings more consistent when the bladed portions are fully extended. I think it's really cool. The addition of a stand base here, along with the arm to really give Nargacuga some aerial poses, some aerial action, I think that that's really cool. And on top of that too, again, this is another thing that kind of makes it kind of match up with the figure builder models as well too, so I think that's really cool. Another thing that I really like is the fact that this particular version came with a bonus hunter figurine as well here, so it's really cool because you get a nice scale of the size comparison between the monster and a hunter here, which I think is honestly very cool. And the fact that there's a lot of stuff you can do with this, with you being able to separate the tail, you can kind of show the hunter kind of chopping off the Nargacuga's tail or something like that. I think that that's very cool. There's a lot of stuff you can do with this figure. And on top of that too, I feel that the price for this figure is very fair when you take into account the quality and the features presented with it. This figure sits at around $80 USD, which translates to a little over $100 Canadian. It might be a little expensive for some, but I feel that price is still fair when you take into account the scale, the features, and the quality of it. And that price point sits in line with the Capcom Figure Builder Creators Model Monsters prices as well, so I feel that the price is not too crazy expensive. The other thing with this model here that I would say is that I would try to keep kids away from this figure, because this Nargacuga model actually does come with a lot of sharp sections. If you remember me talking about this tail piece earlier on in the video, this spiked tail is actually very sharp. Like, this part was actually sticking into my skin earlier. It's very sharp, as well as these bladed wings here. These portions are very sharp with this. So they actually even warn you about that in the manual as well too. So I would be careful if you have kids and you have this model around, because it is possible that this could puncture the skin, because these portions are actually very sharp. So that's something to be aware of if you're planning on collecting this and you have kids around the house as well. So overall, very nice model. There's not really too many things that I can really say that I dislike about it. If there's anything, I would say that there are some loose portions of this model. Sorry about that. Like, if we take a look at the legs here, these parts are a little bit loose. So when it comes to posing it, there are some times when the legs can kind of slip out of it, slip from underneath of it, and the rear portion of the body might sit flat on the ground. But really, all you gotta do is just pose it properly, and you can kind of avoid that. But, you know, besides that, there's not really any complaints that I really have with this. It's honestly a very solid model, and I think it's a very safe purchase, especially if you guys are looking for a Nargacuga figure. I would recommend trying to pick this up. This is a very good model, and yeah, this is the first one in this line. There is another one that's going to be coming out, I think, next month with it, which is Rathalos. So I'm definitely looking forward to picking that up and then seeing what's presented there. It's going to be like my first Rathalos model to collect. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to more monsters within the S.H.MonsterArts line here. So that's pretty much going to conclude the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys found it informative. There's definitely going to be a lot more Monster Hunter collectibles and content coming in the future, so I hope you guys stay tuned for that. But until then, I hope you guys stay safe. I hope you guys have a good night or good day depending on where you are, and I will see you all later.